this comprehensive plan that you've been...
Thank y'all all for coming out this evening. I do see some familiar faces from last night. In Crestview, we had the first town hall last night. See some familiar faces. Same format. We did make a few adjustments to the slide based on some feedback. Again, if you're watching it for the second time, you'll see some new things. My name is George Kramer. I'm a planner. I'm the president of Inspire. We really appreciate the opportunity to be working on this study and to be here at Baker tonight. Mike, thank you for having us here at the school. Really appreciate it. I want to quickly just go through the agenda for tonight. We've got about 2 hours budgeted. The first 30 minutes, we're going to go through a brief presentation. We're going to open up about an hour for question and answer period. The last half hour, we've got these boards here in the back. We'll reserve that final 30 minutes for some small group discussions. Any questions people have, and we can talk about the information on the boards. But we're going to go through some quick introductions of the team, process and schedule of the overall study. What did we hear? The public priorities report, hopefully y'all looked at that on the website. We're going to review the findings of that. It was adopted today at the county commission meeting, which we're really pleased about. We're going to talk about why this is happening, why you're seeing a reduction in rural and agricultural lands in the north part of the county. We're going to talk about some of the considerations as we look ahead to the planning study and what we can do. Then we're going to talk about the next steps, and again, we'll transition into the public comment period. Again, as I said, I'm with George Kramer with Inspire. If I could have all the Inspire team just kind of stand up and wave. Yep. So we've got 12 people here today, and we're here all week. We're in town advancing. Hosted the town hall last night, here tonight. And Thursday we'll be back in Crestview, and Eric will talk a little bit more about that presentation. I also want to recognize staff, Elliot Camper, Randy Woodruff is here as well, and the county staff has been, Tim and Stewart as well, thank you. The staff has been really great partners through this, working with us in the development of the public priorities report and through this process, not just the public engagement, but the recommendations and plan that are going to follow. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Redfeld, the project manager for the effort, and he'll go through the rest of the presentation. Eric.
Thanks, George. Nice to see everybody tonight. And my name is Eric Redfeld. I work for Inspire. I'm located in the city of Gainesville, Florida, is where the office is, where I've lived for about 21, 22 years. And so happy to be in your community today. I also wanted to thank Mike for hosting us. Got the story on the balanced act with the Gators. Love the gator. Not so sure about the colors. Just kidding. It's all good. So yeah, I want to talk about where we are with things, where we're heading. We talked about this last night at the Crestview Community Center, and then we did a similar presentation, as George mentioned this morning, to the board county commissioners, and had them adopt some of the work we've done. So what's the purpose of the project? The purpose of this project, which we're calling the North County Planning Study, is to understand the community's vision for the future of North Okaloosa, and then really to work with the community to develop a plan to help achieve that vision. So I think what's important about this is that what you all are seeing right now is happening under existing conditions. Okay? So what we're saying with this planning study is we're here to try to help address some of those issues and make recommendations to the city commission about how we can address the existing conditions and make them better. Okay, so I just wanted to emphasize that. As far as the process goes, we're working through a pretty aggressive calendar. We're now at the beginning of the process here in the March through May timeframe, and really just wrapped up what we consider the first part of the public input program. So you'll see down in the timeline here, task 1. And task 1 was what we had a deliverable associated with, which are these two documents. And those were we presented to the county commission this morning. And those documents we published on the website. So we posted those two the deliverables on the website. We actually did that 2 weeks ago, and we're going to be doing that with all the deliverables so that the community has an opportunity to take a look at those deliverables before we move forward. And importantly, of course, many of you have already participated in the project website. I'm going to talk about some of the feedback we've had there, but that's really one of the main tools that we're using to get public input throughout the course of the study. In terms of the public input program, we'll have roughly 14 public meetings. This would be our 4th public meeting, town hall. I don't think we included the Board of County Commissioners meeting in that this morning, so that's an extra one. But at the end of the day, we'll be having 14 public meetings. We'll be presenting things at those public meetings as we go through the work that we're doing, and we'll use those as opportunities to basically review the information with folks and get more input. We published a schedule, and the schedule is also on the project website. It has a calendar, basically lists all the town halls that we're having, emphasizes when we're going to be posting the deliverables, so that it's very transparent how we're moving through this project. That's also backed up by an even more in-depth schedule that's tied to that calendar, kind of explains in detail what we're doing. Sorry about the feedback. I don't know what's going on with the system. So, what have we heard? What did we hear in our first phase of public input? As far as the project website, we've received roughly over 3,500 comments on the website. And we've had the website posted shortly after we received the notice to proceed from the county, which was on March 14th. We've also had a series of town halls in our deliverables. We've talked about the first 2 town halls, which were held on March 25th at the Baker Community Center, and then on March 27th at the Crestwood Community Center. We had roughly 400 to 500 attendees at each of those meetings, and if any of you, I know some of you attended those meetings, you remember that we had the table maps with the comments, and we collected about 60 of those marked up maps. And those marked up maps had about roughly 1,000 plus comments on them. This slide basically summarizes the total comments that we got. And remember, that was the 1,000 from the town halls and the in excess of 3,500 to 3,600 on the website. And we received, as you'll remember, if you participated in the map exercises, we had some of these comment headings at the top, basically listed as areas to comment on. But you'll see that many of our comments were focused on infrastructure, agricultural concerns, conservation concerns, some with housing as well, some that dealt with institutional issues, and when we're saying institutional, things like schools and hospitals and that type of thing. So that was really where, those were the focus areas that we received on all the comments we were involved. And this bar graph basically gives you the same information back in a different form. So what we're saying on the website is that the majority of comments that came back were dealing with preserving the rural character of the area and agriculture, also conservation and concerns about infrastructure. And then as far as the kickoff, the town halls, similar pattern. We had fairly solid number of agricultural and rural preservation comments, some housing, and then infrastructure concerns. And this is just another sort of visual way to depict the data, but again, it was concentrated in annual preservation, infrastructure, and conservation. So as I indicated to the county commission this morning in our report, if you take all those comments and all those areas that we were focused in, the key findings and the key takeaways that we got from the community were that there's a strong desire to preserve the rural and agricultural character of northern Okaloosa County. There is a concern with inadequate infrastructure associated with existing development patterns and future growth in the community. And there's alarm regarding a lack of transparency and inadequate coordination in managing growth. And just to specify under that comment, we had comments that were things like, things may be noticed. You might see a notice for development, but are we hitting a broad enough area with those notices? Are we getting the word out about things that are happening with respect to development? Are the different levels of government communicating about their own particular growth and management plans, and are they being coordinated? For instance, like issues with transportation and roads, we all know that roadways can be controlled by different levels of government. We have state right-of-ways, we have county right-of-ways, etc. Are all those things being fleshed out in a coordinated manner? Okay?
Alarm is a good word.
Thank you. So we wanted to step back and just talk about the macro issues and sort of talk about why we think this is happening. As you all know, the South right now is driving population growth in the nation. So we have a lot of folks that are coming to the South from other parts of the country. They're coming down from the Northeast, they're coming down from the Midwest, etc. Certain areas of the country are losing population. Okay? But the South, in this time period for the year 2023, we're in new population. for a variety of reasons. People are tired, etc. They're leaving areas that they feel have problems, or they're retiring. Florida drives the South's population growth. Okay? And we all know or have an idea that Florida is the second highest state in terms of population now, in terms of number of folks, in terms of numeric growth, and also in the percentage growth. Okay? On the numeric side, it's just behind Texas. And on the percent growth, it's just behind South Carolina. So that's another macro factor why this is happening. And then if we distill it down to the county, you basically can see that the county in the 2020 to 2023 period, it had slightly lower growth than the state of Florida, but actually in 2022 to 2023, it had equal or slightly higher growth than the state. So the point of all the slides is that at macro level, we're dealing with population issues. And I want to have a segue here, and I mentioned to the county, is that our firm is working in other counties in the state. And so the same issues that we're dealing with in Okaloosa County, we're dealing with in other counties. Now, the particulars are different, and the circumstances are a little bit different, they vary, but all these counties are dealing with growth management issues. We're working in St. Johns County, Flagler, Polk, Pasco, Indian River County. Probably one more than I'm missing. But all of them are dealing with similar issues. So I just say that because it's a sense of perspective. And again, it goes back to this macro issues driving, right? Over the past 3 years, much of the growth in Okaloosa County has occurred in the Crestview, Laurelville, and unincorporated areas of the county. So again, a lot of the growth is in the county that's growing a little bit more than the state, is happening more in the unincorporated area and is a large part of our study area. So we want to turn from those macro issues to basically some of the growth management structure and some of the framework and how we think about these things. We said at the outset that the impetus for the study, or why we're doing the study, is to work with the community on their vision. So we're helping to develop community vision as we go through the study. And then every community in the state of Florida jurisdiction is required by state law to adopt a comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is driven by the community vision. And the comprehensive plan has various elements that are listed there. Things like future land use, transportation, housing, some of your infrastructure or utility issues. And so the vision drives the comprehensive plan. And within the comprehensive plan, those elements, there are certain goals, objectives, and policies that further delineate how we're going to achieve certain things or work towards certain things in the jurisdiction. So Okaloosa County has a comprehensive plan. It's what the county is using right now to manage growth. It's the existing condition. Okay? And then the implementing mechanism for a comprehensive plan is the land development code. And that really gets into zoning and administration and the allowable uses in different zoning standards, into different zoning designations, design standards. Okay? The important thing to note here is that the land development code has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's a requirement. It's stated that requirement is stated in your comprehensive plan. I believe it's stated in the land development code that the two have to be consistent. Okay? So this slide is the same slide that we have on the boards. And this is part of the issue of the existing condition. In the study area that we're looking at, there's roughly 245,000 acres. Okay. You have predominance of agricultural and rural residential land use. You can see how many acres those are, respectively. About 187 agricultural and about 22,000 rural residential. So that's a lot of study area, right? Mostly the majority of the study area has land use of agricultural and residential rural. Under the comprehensive plan, you get a base density associated with those. And in agriculture, the base density is 1 unit per 10 acres, which in an agricultural setting, it makes sense, right? We've seen higher with, let's say, 1 unit to 20, 1 to 25. But that's the base density. But the existing condition also allows for these bonus densities that would allow somebody to come in and develop basically at 1 unit to the acre if they meet certain conditions. And that is the existing comprehensive plan currently. So that's the existing condition. And it's one of those things that we have to assess a little deeper because we think that's one of the reasons that if you're in an existing living environment and you feel like you have an agricultural living environment and that's what you're striving for, and then somebody is allowed to achieve a bonus, then you're seeing a different character development that comes in with that. More single family, that's denser. So that's agricultural. It's a similar issue with rural residential because rural residential allows 1 unit to 5 acres as a base density, which again makes sense for rural. But then also there are provisions in there that allows for more density if you meet certain conditions. Okay, and a condition would be something like you have to have a road that connects into a county road. I think that's one of the conditions. There are others. But if you meet those conditions, then you can get the higher density. And that's the existing condition. That's what's happening right now. Okay, so in our study, we're assessing that because we have to assess whether that's consistent with those 3 takeaways that I just went over. Okay. So, you know, if you're in rural residential and you provide a road to a county roadway and meet other conditions, you might get a development pattern that looks something like this. And if you're one of these, if you're owning one of these homesteads that's in the lower area there, you could be in like what you consider an agricultural setting and then have something like this come in not too far from you. That's under the existing comp plan. I'm saying that many times because I just want to make sure that we all understand. I'm trying to communicate clearly. Now, on the other hand, when we're assessing these things, we have to be also cognizant or aware that there are other things that drive some of the things that are in the existing condition. And talk about takings, and this goes to the issue of property rights. Okay? So, we're a country that believes strongly in property rights, right? And the state of Florida, as a state, has a very strong private property rights orientation. And the way you can tell that is because a lot of things aren't in the law. Okay? However, and so if you're a private property owner, if you have expectations that you're going to get a return on your property because it's got certain land use, what we call a land use designation that has certain allowable density on it, which we just talked about, then the government has to be pretty careful about trying to take that away. Because if you do that, you're reducing the property owners what they call an investment, reasonable investment-based expectation. Okay? And that's, I talked about this last night. We didn't really talk about it in the county commission today. But we have the Burt-Harris Act in Florida, and it basically was a law that was pushed forward by a fellow named Burt-Harris. Does anybody know that person? He was a citrus grower, but he was in the Florida House. And this act was passed in the mid-90s. And it was designed to enhance private property rights. And basically set standards for regulatory taking. And again, it goes back to those couple of phrases that I said. If you're negatively affecting a private property owner's investment-backed expectations, when you're doing what's considered inordinately burdening the property, then that could be grounds for a Burt-Harris action, which in common parlance is a lawsuit. A lawsuit.
Sir?
Yes.
There's a value to land that is not monetary. It's a value in use and in quality, not in money necessarily.
Sure.
So they would be infringing upon our ability to enjoy quiet, peaceable land rather than a regulatory one that's based on money.
That's a good point. I guess what I would say though is that I'm just talking about both sides of the coin here. So it's not to say that the community doesn't have rights either. I'm just talking about in our study what we have to be cognizant of.
I hear that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a good
That
point.
is not both sides if it's just talking about money. It's the quality of a peaceful, beautiful community that's warm.
Absolutely, and we heard that from everybody who's participated so far. And I think if you read our report that reflects what you said, I think you'll see that. A quick example under a Burt-Harris claim: if you purchase a piece of property in 2022 and it had medium density residential, and you can get 16 units per acre on it, and then the county enacts some land use change on that property and changes it down to a lower density, there could be grounds for a Burt-Harris action. So it's an example now. Again, we're just framing that issue so that we can put that on the table for folks. So as far as the study goes, the reports that we've talked about and hearing from all of you is what we kind of call the qualitative side of the house. So we hear all of your ideas, concerns, the facts on the ground from folks, and we take those into consideration. But then we also have to do sort of like a technical piece, which is more quantitative. And when I say the technical piece, that means we have to look at a lot of issues like what is the infrastructure right now? Where is it? Where are we? Where is the community leading the infrastructure right now? When I say infrastructure, I mean like utilities, water and sewer, roads, all those things. We have to understand what's happening with all those things. Because at the end of the day, when we go back to the county commission with a report on our study, which you all will review, we have to say, okay, these are this is what's happening. These are some of the capital improvements that are being pursued by the county, by other cities. I think you all know that in the county we have, I believe it's 10 or 11 utilities. So we've been talking to many of those utilities already. And we also have to make sure that we designate areas of development constraints. And areas of development constraint are things like where we have environmental features of the property that we can't get too close to. Today I had a meeting with the folks from Eglin Air Force Base. And if you look at a map, you all know this, but also if you look at a map that Eglin keeps, they have a lot of their air operations that, of course, cross not only Okaloosa County, but several of the counties in the Panhandle. And that comes with a series of implications for development potentially. Like what's compatible to develop in those particular areas or not so much. So those are the things that we have to work through in June, July in our technical analysis. In the planning analysis in August, we have to work with the comprehensive plan and land development code. We got to make sure that we have we've looked at it pretty much in depth, but we got to really figure out a lot of the comp plan policies and what's going on with the land development code as well. And then in the October time frame, we'll have a draft final report, which will capture all those things, and then we'll come forward with that report. Folks in this room will be able to see that report. We'll post it on the project website. And then we'll potentially, the Board of County Commissioners can review the report, and there likely will be recommendations in that report on amendments to the comprehensive plan and land development code. And then the County Commission will discuss it, and we'll hear from you and make some decisions on where we're headed. So that's the timeline. I think this is the final slide.
You back up just a little bit, Eric.
So we have one more town hall this week, and our town hall number 5 will be in the Crestview Community Center. We'll be in the Crestview Community Center. If you were at last night's town hall and tonight's town hall, they're pretty much the same. But Thursday's town hall is going to be more about how can we preserve rural lands in North Okaloosa. And that's really about talking about tools that there are out there potentially that can be utilized and maybe utilized in other places that may work in Okaloosa County. So we want to start talking about that a little bit. So it'll be a slightly different meeting on Thursday. Not the last slide. Project website is going to be up throughout the whole project timeline. We'll probably keep this up. If you don't know where that website is, you can find it using that QR code. Just take a picture of it tonight, and you can continue to give us your feedback. And we're taking all feedback. You know, whether it's positive, negative, we're taking it. Okay, so, and we appreciate it. Appreciate everybody participating. You all have a picture of that? I'm just going to get my last slide.
I just had a question on the survey that's gonna come back up. Because they closed on April 30th, you can't add any more input. They're requesting us to email it. You can't add input on the survey anymore.
Okay, well, we can talk about that. We'll talk about that. Thank you for listening to our presentation tonight. Our intent with these presentations is hopefully to bring some clarity to what we're doing so that you all know what we're doing, and that we're trying to do that because we want to make sure that we're transparent. Because that was a consideration that you all had that was in the key takeaways. Okay. And with that, we're going to go around and just ask for any of your questions or comments, and we'll be happy to hear from you.
I'm just going to take a brief pause and test the microphone away from the electronics and see if the interference gets any better. Mic's dead.
Here's it clearly.
Yeah, this comprehensive plan that you've been doing, is that the one that was on your website dated 2009?
Yes, if the comprehensive plan he's referring to is the one on the website dated 2009.
Comprehensive plan is on the county's website and is dated 2009.
So I take it from one of your last slides that the plan, or at least the intent, will be to amend that comprehensive plan later this year, right?
What we're going to do is we're going to do all of that timeline is going to be compiled into a final report. And that final report will have recommendations to the county commission, and likely they're going to include potential changes to the comprehensive plan. And then once we get to that point, there's a very restrictive process that the county commission has to do in terms of hearings to actually make changes to the comprehensive
So
plan.
I'm assuming that change, or the recommendation changes, would be also included in the future land use map.
It could be, yes.
Now, final question is, in your opinion, do you think some of the changes would relate to the policies and the objectives of the 2009 plan?
Yes.
And just to repeat, for those who couldn't hear, we do anticipate changes to the comprehensive plan as a result of this study. There'll be recommendations that are part of the plan. Ultimately, that's a decision of the Board of County Commissioners. That could include text changes. It could include map changes to the future land use map.
So how can we have input into that process to make sure that the people in North Okaloosa have some say in those changes?
So the question is how we can have influence in what those changes are.
Exactly.
Please attend on Thursday in Crestview, because we're going to identify ways in which we can address some of the issues. How can we've heard back from the community, we want to preserve rural character, we want to preserve agriculture in North Okaloosa, okay? So we're going to start the discussion on what are the tools that we can do that.
Just asking my question again, will the ideal wall and the survey open back up? The website for Inspire shows that it closed on April 30th, and we're no longer allowed to add input or suggestions for North Okaloosa right now.
So the question was regarding the map and the ideal wall on the website. So as Eric said, and we just submitted that public priorities report, so we closed the map so that we could pull all 4,614 comments, I believe, and document that. The period for public comment continues, okay? You still have the opportunity. There is we have an email address, northokaloosa@inspireplacebaking.com, that you can email comments to at any time. I believe that there's still going to be on the website, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but there'll still be opportunities to put input on an ideal wall throughout the process. So we want to continue getting input through those methods, through the interactive project website, but that's why we took the map down. I don't know that we're going to put the map back on, but there will be additional opportunities for input. Yes. There was a question, is the email address on the website, and it is. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is regarding the planning phase for infrastructure. What criteria is being analyzed and evaluated to determine what type of infrastructure is needed?
Okay. So the question relates to how are we analyzing infrastructure. So it's really a multi-step process. The first thing we have to do is identify what we project the growth to be within the area, so to determine the demand. Within the comprehensive plan, the county stipulates projections for water and sewer demand based on populations coming in. So we're using those standards that come in, and then we're assessing, okay, this is what we project the demand to be, this is what your supply is, and identifying any deficits or gaps as part of that process.
So I can't speak for everybody in here, but I think a lot of people share my concern that it's being presented as if for this much growth, this is the infrastructure needed. So the more water, the more sewer infrastructure we bring in, this takes us away from well and septic and lays a groundwork for us to be having this same unit 5 to 10 years from now.
Okay.
And,
So
and I understand places need to grow, but I don't think most of us moved here to be investors. We moved here to be away from Westview, and we don't want this place to become Westview. And with infrastructure, massive infrastructure like water and sewer, that supports future big bucks and commerce coming in, which is, I believe, what most of us moved here to avoid.
So again, to paraphrase, understand, consistent with the findings of the priority report, you like the rural character and want to preserve that. Comments related to infrastructure, I will tell you, in most places, and what we found here, is what you're not seeing is infrastructure that is in advance of growth. And so...
Is it there?
So again, we're going through the process. We're going through the process of analyzing, where there are gaps and deficits, with the projected growth and where that infrastructure is planned. So I guess what I'm trying to clarify is, what the report is not going to say is, here's where all the infrastructure, here's where you have all this infrastructure, excess, and this is where the demand is. We will do a comprehensive assessment and understand where infrastructure is, but there's also significant costs associated with infrastructure improvements that would be needed to accommodate that, and those will be included in the report as well.
So have y'all checked out PJ Adams?
PJ Adams has been brought up.
Yeah, that's what we're
Through
worried about.
this
20
process.
years from now, maybe we'll get roads in Baker after they build 5,000 houses, which all goes down to that end of the county. We never get it. Not here, we never do. We're the last ones on the list.
And I'm just going to come down here and then come back over here just so we make sure, ma'am.
Okay, I want to go back to your 2009 report, okay? That supposedly will be all updated once this all gets evaluated.
Uh-huh.
So are you telling me that nothing has been re-looked at since 2009, and that the two neighborhoods going in on Buckboard go back to what was in 2009? You're talking about putting 600 houses on Buckboard alone. And I have a big concern about that. I have a horse farm. And we don't even have lines on the road now. And you You can't have two trucks pass each other. You're paying attention as it is, and you're gonna put 600 houses out here on Buck Ford with two cars per house, 3 kids in a house, in a school where the roof is falling down. And all of this goes back to 2009, and no one in our county commission thought ahead after seeing what Crestview was turning into to look at what was going out here. Because this is not what we want. I don't want 600 more cars on my road. That's an awful long time for you guys to have your little commission meeting and not address things from 2009. I moved here in 2004, and I can tell you what's happened in the last 20 years in Crestview. That's why I'm not here in Baker. For God's sake, you put in a Marshalls and you don't even make a turn lane going north? Come on.
Okay. So I appreciate your comments. Again, those are reflected within the report. Just to be clear, yes, the last overhaul of the plan was done in 2009.
Our commissioners are behind the ball. That's all I can say for you guys. And either you need to step up to the plate, commissioners, or we're going to vote you all out.
So, and I just want to clarify that
you're not that.
Right. But, you know, and I understand there's frustrations that happened in the past. We should emphasize that, you know, the commission approved this study, and we're in the middle of this study, and there will be recommendations that are made that address the concerns that you've expressed that are in the plan.
600 houses that's already been approved to go up.
I
on
understand.
Buck
I
Ford.
understand.
So what are they going to do about that? Anybody? Anybody got a comment? A commissioner here?
I mean, Commissioner
I just got a quick question for our representatives. Are y'all seeing anything to where like there is like a huge 911 push to get a lot of these projects done prior to all of these findings being found? To where they can get in before all of this is finalized?
No. The question is there a big push to get a bunch of projects in before the study's finalized?
Permits pulled that would allow?
Right now, we're not seeing that. In fact, the 2 projects that people are worried about, the Buckhaven project and the Arbor Grove project, they actually are about a year old now, Randy. How are Buckhaven and Arbor Grove about a year?
Would y'all mind just sliding in so they could sit? Would y'all mind just kind of slide in a little bit so we could? Thank you.
Those 2 projects are about a year old. Okay, so they weren't submitted just last week because of this. They've been in the works for over a year, and right now we're not seeing a big rush on any additional projects in an effort to beat the clock.
So is there any way to kind of like cap that and allow this to be finalized before anything else could be approved?
The Board of County Commissioners has not expressed any interest in doing any kind of a moratorium or anything at this point in time. I think they want to see where the study is going and, you know, act accordingly. But right now, again, those projects, even if they put something in, since they had their application in over a year ago, they would have to be exempt from that because they beat the clock. But again, it wasn't because of this study. It was because of, you know, they've been in the works.
I've had my land for a lot longer than a year. That's my moratorium.
And if you don't develop it, that is your moratorium.
It affects
It's
it.
your choice.
Sir.
I don't know if it's been addressed, but the intersection right here at Highway 4 and 14th Street right here. We need a traffic light for the school. Secondly, the storm drain right there is in a weird place because if we have a downpour, you're going to have a canoe to get across it because the water doesn't even go in the storm drain. And then thirdly, if you're coming back from Niceville at the end of the day, have you seen the bumper-to-bumper traffic? And we don't even have any more people moving in here yet. It's terrible.
Thank you.
It's forever good out 85.
Tourists on the weekend, yeah.
Sir.
So on the map that was there and then the ones that are around, you have the agriculture zoning, 1 house per 10 acres, and then the rural residential 1 per 5. What triggers that bonus density where it can go to the more houses?
So the question is, so we're showing base densities for ag and rural. Ag is 1 unit per 10 acres, rural residential is 1 unit per 5. The question is what triggers the density? And it's different for each of those land use categories. Okay. In ag, it can't be designated as prime farmland, but that's only 10% of the agricultural lands within the study area, are those prime farmlands. The second is it's got to have access to a county road. So what has happened is developers, if they have a road proposed that connects to a county road, then that triggers the 1 unit per 10 acres. Okay, and let me just finish the question. The second part, for rural residential, to get to the 2 units per acre, it has to have access to a county maintained road. However, it also stipulates that if a road is built and subsequently dedicated to the county per county standards, that counts as access. So, through our analysis, we recognize that both of those bonuses, are readily achievable, and we've seen that through there. So that's to answer your question, ma'am. Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am. You had your
Question. Who's going to vote to approve or implement the changes to the comp plan, the new comp plan? That's my question number 1. And question number 2, this morning you mentioned you are talking to the utilities. Have you talked to your sheriff department? Have you talked to your fire department? Because we are lacking resources in both of those areas. If we have a house fire, we are 30 minutes out even getting any kind of help.
So the first question was regarding who